This video is going to walk you through some of the important features in Microsoft Word. Now there's a lot of features that most people don't realize exist in Word, or they're just simply not using them correctly. In this section, I'm going to hit some of the highlights. Now you should have already gone through and looked at the GFC Global website and read through those different areas. But after those, I think this is going to add a little bit extra to emphasize a couple of key points for us today. So first off, you should have already mastered all the basic formatting options. All the things up here in the home ribbon, from the highlights to colors to scribbling formatting, all the bullet points, numbering, all that kind of thing, even basic tabs. You should have already played with all of those. One of the features you may not have played with is this one right here. This little button is called ShowHide. When you click that button, it's going to review all of the invisible marks in your document that you don't normally see. So for example, if I put a couple of spaces in, you'll see in my document I now have this little blue dots highlighted. When I unclick it, again, all the spaces disappear. I'm going to turn that on right now because it'll help us understand what's happening when I get to tabs. The other option I'm going to turn on is the ruler. Now my Word already had it turned on, but yours might have it turned off. If it's turned off, go ahead and click the checkbox to go ahead and include it. Let's talk about a couple of the key features here. I'm using a quiz document that's part of the homework for the class. Let's start at the top. Insert a picture of a duck in the middle of the paragraph titled, "The word duck comes." Now, we have a couple of options for how we're going to display the picture, but let's go ahead and get it inside first. I'm going to scroll down to the paragraph that I wanted to find and go ahead and do insert. When you choose to insert a picture, there's obviously more than one way to do it. One of the ways you might do it is have a picture on your computer. Another option is you can actually look online and grab it that way. Now, based off of your version of Word, you may or may not have an easy way of pulling that in, but you can play around and see what options you have. For me, I'm going to go ahead and grab a picture from online. I'm going to grab pictures and go to online and type in the word duck. This uses one of Microsoft's built-in features that is going to be powered by Bing. So I'm going to grab the picture of a duck. I'm going to grab this guy right here. He looks fairly interesting, and click insert to get it into my picture. Now once I get it into the picture, into my document, you'll see that it really bumps over my text a lot. And that's because the default options for how you do alignment on pictures are kind of frustrating. Alright, I'm going to close out the online pictures, and you'll see that I have a very large duck here. I'm going to immediately go ahead and make them smaller. Now one thing you might notice when you use this online feature is that when I clicked on the option to resize, it didn't actually change the surrounding area. That's because this is actually including the attribution and little text box below there. If this is your own image, you don't have to include that in there, and you can always go ahead and delete it. If it is someone else's image though, you probably should leave it on. So when you resize, be sure to grab the outer box, which that allows me to change both the caption size as well as the label. Squeeze this up a little bit more here. Okay, so now we can see my duck. Make him a little bit smaller so I can see the label. All right, now the major issue I have with this picture as I move it around, and again, be careful how you move it, is that it doesn't really flow well with the text. It sort of acts as a break. We have the words happening, then we have the picture, which is supposed to really fill up the line, and then the line keeps on going. What we really want to do with this is actually change the picture format and alignment options. Now when we get into the picture format options, you'll see we have a lot of little things we can play with. Everything from crop to color corrections, all kinds of stuff. What I'm going to work on right now though is the option that lets me wrap the text around it. I'm going to go to wrap text and choose the option called square. Once I click square, you'll see that now my text is able to flow around the picture. Now I'm not sure why Microsoft made this option not the default, but I think for most pictures this is what you really want to use to have the text flow around it. Now there's other options inside of this. Some of the options you have are tight, which makes it go a little bit closer to it. You could even do this in front of the text, so now the words are flowing in front of my picture. Or you can also do behind. So there's a lot of options you can play with for the picture formatting, and you should be able to do any of them on a test. Now past that, there's some other nice features come when we get into pictures. One option might be the crop. I'm going to put this back to square so I can see it easier. If I don't want to have all of the text for this duck, I'm going to click the crop button and cut off some of it. Now I don't have quite as much green stuff and more of a square picture for my duck. Another option that I really like, which is useful in PowerPoint presentations, is to remove the background. If you look at them right now, I've got this white duck and a lot of this green background behind it. There's a lot of corrections you can do to maybe change the picture, like sharpen it, soften it, tweak the color or saturation. There's a whole bunch of different things you can play with there. You can remove the background by clicking this Remove Background button on the left. Once you click on the Remove Background feature, you're going to get a window pop up, and it's going to try and help you to figure out what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep. I'm going to mark the areas to either keep or remove with the two options up here. So first I'm going to mark the top of the duck's head, which got a little bit cut off here. And once I click on that area, Word will actually use a little tiny program to go in and try and figure out, based off the edges, what I want to have included in my picture or not. So you notice it's not perfect, but it does a pretty good job of guessing where the duck is. And I just have to kind of go around and match to tell the program what I want to keep or not keep of it. Now that I'm done, I have a duck, and then once again, it's not perfect, but on pictures where you have a really clear background and foreground, it's kind of a nice little ability to pull out the background. So those are some key things when we get to pictures. Again, the ones I want you to know how to resize it, know how to crop it, know how to do the wrap, and then also we might think about basic things like adding a border, stuff like that. But those are pretty much the majority of the things I want you to master. Let's talk about some formatting. Now when we look at formatting, you probably are familiar with double spacing. It tends to be something that's taught in most classes. The thing that people get confused about though is spacing between paragraphs. If you look at this paragraph and this paragraph, you'll see there's a little bit of extra space attached to it. That's because the paragraph here is formatted to have a little bit of extra space. Let me scroll down to show you on the one down here. If I right click and go to paragraph to go to the options, we'll see that I have that double spacing, single spacing, all that kind of stuff. The thing that I want you to look at though is this after space. If I change the after space to 0, you can see the picture, it pulls the following text up. I click OK, and now even though I have an enter right there, this is on the exact next line. Now after I've done that, I can go ahead and do the paragraph double spacing options, and it looks okay. The other option you want to know is the difference between indentation and first line indentation. First line indentation is when you want to have just the first piece tabbed over, which is typically what you want on an APA paper. There are times though you'll want to actually do the other option. The other option, I don't do the first line, instead I just do a ½ left and ½ right. You might use this for something like a block quote. Click OK, and then do the block quote option. So again, this gives you another option for how you have your text line up inside the document. So these are some key things with formatting text you should be comfortable with. Double spacing, first line indent or hanging tab, and the other options for pushing the text in the left and the right. Let's do the next one. The next option I want to play with is looking at how to deal with tabs. Now we just talked about tabs a second ago, but when we get into tabs, you actually can do a lot more than just add the tab on the front. Okay, I have a little sample down below here that will help you understand how you can use tabs to align data inside of Word. When we look at the example, we see we've got 3 columns of information: street, price, and cost. Another key thing you need to understand is that in between each of these words, I put a tab character by hitting the tab key on my keyboard. I can see this because I have the Reveal Codes button turned on. Now when we get into tabs, the first thing you need to do is do your selection box. I'm going to drag the cursor from the front to the back, right click, and go to paragraph. After I'm inside a paragraph, I have to click on one more button to actually set the tabs. That's the tabs key, tabs button on the bottom left. Now I have this menu. It's going to look a little bit different if you're working on a PC, but it's similar enough you should be able to figure out how to adapt these. Now the first setting I need to do whenever I come into this menu is the button that says Clear All. Clear All is important because tabs will only show in the menu if you have the exact same selection box as you did last time. Just to clarify and avoid little oddities, go ahead and click the Clear All button each time to get rid of all the old stuff. The next thing I'm going to do is tell Word what position I want the first tab character to be aligned to. I'm going to say the first one should be at 3 inches. Once I type in the value up here, I'm going to hit the plus. And now I have a tab that will be inserted at the 3-inch mark. Let's go ahead and do one more. I'll do it at the 5-inch mark. And then click OK. So now I see that I still have the same individual tab character listed here, but now all of my second column is nicely lined up. My third column is also lined up. Now it's looking better, but still not perfect. Imagine, for example, that some of these values are a little bit longer than others. It doesn't look very good because I really want this data to be right aligned. So let's do it again. I'm going to do a selection box, right click and go to paragraph, and then go to tabs. Inside of tabs, the first thing I'm going to do is click the clear all button. Now that all of them are cleared, I can re-add a tab stop. Let's do this one right aligned. I also want to insert one more for the cost. Just to make things a little bit different, I'm going to insert that at 6 inches, and I'll make that one centered just so you can see what it looks like. And then click OK. Now we can see that I have my price data is right aligned, and my cost is now centered. And as I add more data to each of these individual lines, you'll see how it plays out. The last thing is a dot line leader. Let's do the selection one more time. Go to paragraph, tabs, and click the clear all button. I'm going to again put another tab stop in, right aligned at 3 inches, but this time I'm going to click the line leader options here. Now instead of having just blank in front of it, I'm going to add these little hyphens. I'll do another one at 5, and I'll make that one also center aligned and with a dot line leader. And notice that after each tab stop, I'm clicking the plus button here. If I don't click the plus button, it's not going to save. Once I click OK, you'll see now I have my document. I'm going to go ahead and undo the ShowHide so you can see this a little bit better. The first tab stop has little hyphens in front of it. The second tab stop has dots. And as I add and remove information here, you'll see that the tabs still work properly and they still look nice. So this is a much cleaner way of working with your document than trying to do the fake version of this where you just type them in manually. If you just type in a bunch of dots, it never lines up quite right and just doesn't look quite as professional. I have another video on here that helps you with things like references and bibliography, so you should be able to play with those. The last major option I want to talk about are page headers and footers. Now with page headers and footers, typically the confusion comes around how to make the first page look different than the other pages. First, let's go ahead and take a look at the existing ones. Now if I zoom out, you'll notice I don't actually see the space on top of my screen. To see it, I've got to put my cursor up on the very top until it has this little odd symbol. The symbol looks like two arrows, one pointing up, one pointing down. Double click, and Word will now let you scroll to see your actual header information. The same thing applies to the one on the bottom. If I put my cursor between these two and double click, it hides that information. If I double click again, now it adds it back. So now that I see the headers and footers, I can go ahead and do my options. Let's go to the top one first. If I want to have a different first page, I have to click the checkbox up here that says different first page. Now I have a first page header that will be different from all the page headers down below. So for example, in APA, you might have something like running head. And then you have a title. And then lower down, you want to just have something like the title shown. So this makes your life a lot easier to have the first page header and first page footer separate. The other thing we're typically going to want to do is insert a page number. Now there's more than one way to do this, and it does look a little bit different on the Mac and the PC. What I recommend though is everyone start with this built-in option. The blank 3-column layout gives you 3 spots that are preset to be in the right areas. I have one on the left, one in the center, and one on the right. On the left, I'm going to click something like running head. If you don't want anything in the center, just delete it. But the key thing is I'm not deleting the tab marks. Behind the scenes, this is actually using a tab, just like what we just did a minute ago with my list. I've got one tab in the middle and one on the right. I could type something in here, or just leave it blank by deleting where it says click here. The last thing is getting the page number. The mistake most people make with page number is that they go to page number and click it. And if you're on the PC version of this, it's going to overwrite whatever you have. Same thing with the Mac. If I click OK, usually on a PC, it's going to delete this first running head piece. On this time, Word's getting a little bit smarter, and I guess that I wanted to keep that information, but sometimes it will delete whatever you already have up there. So when you do this, what I recommend is you just get used to using the field codes. The field codes are going to give you this option up here where it says field. This gives you a ton of information inside of Word. Everything from page numbering to the section to the author. You can do all sorts of interesting information up in here. If you look at the document information, you can see things like file name. So if you're a business, it might be kind of nice to have an automatic piece of your header telling you the name of the file. For us though, we're going to go to field and we're going to do numbering and get the page number option. Once I click OK, I have a little field that gets popped into my screen here that tells me my current page number. You also might want to have something that says page 1 of, and then have the maximum number of pages. You can do the same thing by clicking the field button, going to numbering, and one of the options gives you the number of pages in the section. Now I have page 1 of 2. So this is a standard thing I want you to be able to do when we play with Word on the next exam. Be able to do the header and the footer, so we can do up here or down here. And again, the easiest way to do it is to insert the blank 3-column layout and then do insert field and look through your field options that are in here. If you're on a PC, it looks a little bit different. Instead of clicking where I did on the field, you can do one of the options on the left on page number, and one of the drop downs says current position. If you click on the current position option, it'll insert a field code just like we did here. But in either case, I think it's good to figure out how to use the codes, whether you're on the PC or the Mac.